Jay, I'm very fond of the guy who's joining us here, and I appreciate his time. But what do you think the odds are that Brenden has ever heard of Slipping into Darkness?
0. I'm pretty sure he's heard the song.
That's probably accurate.
Yeah,
that's probably accurate.
He's probably heard the song. But
yeah.
Good luck the rest of the way.
I feel like the Kings and my experience covering them, I am currently slipping into the darkness.
Really?
But I cannot tell you the song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll play it for you too.
There we go.
Song.
There we go.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard when I told Jay that I had invited you in, and he said, "Oh, I don't want to hear the positivity."
Yeah.
And I heard you today, and and bless you for your objectivity. You weren't overly optimistic about things today when you were on with Alan.
It's they just lost to the Wizards, Whitey.
Right?
And so it's hard to be optimistic right now. And I think in general, to be honest, I more often than not try to see what I think that they or what their logic may be, even if I don't agree with it, right? So I feel like a lot of times I try to present that side of what I think that they are thinking, even if I don't agree with it. Right now, I don't really know what
you got.
Thinking.
Nothing.
I don't really know, Whitey. It doesn't make sense to me. There's a lack of direction in my mind. There's a lack of identity for the current team. And there's just more questions than answers.
Yeah, they seem to me, we don't know for sure what's going on behind closed doors. We know that there may be changes afoot. We'll find out about that. But on the court, they seem rudderless, right?
They definitely do. I heard you guys mentioning maybe they've given up on this season. Like, you can't help but have those questions at this current point. There's no reason that you should be. The fact that JT Thor hit a shot to ice the game, I don't think anything represents this season better than the fact that the Washington Wizards, who had 16 wins coming into the night, I believe it was, pulled their best players in the fourth quarter. They are actively trying to lose.
You have Jordan Poole coaching in the fourth quarter on the sideline, coaching.
It's horrible. I don't have it in front of me, but if you look at the net rating of the teams over the last 14 games, the Kings are 11-3 in those games.
I heard you talking about this, I think, on the Return of the War.
And all of the teams surrounding them are the team that they just played yesterday, Washington, Utah, Philadelphia. It's all teams that, again, at this point in the year are actively trying to lose. And part of the Kings' benefit in this play-in race should be that they want to win. And you can't say that about every other team that they're rubbing shoulders with necessarily, but you're not seeing that on the court.
See, I told you, Jay, you weren't going to get Mr. Sunshine today.
I don't see no rainbow, no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
If I saw a rainbow, I'd talk about it, man.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you. I think, and this is something that, again, I'm going to propose 916-339-1140. Brenden, you tell me. I think there is a difference, and I understand, there's a gray area within what I'm talking about. I think there's a difference in the form that this team looks like they're counting the days until the end of the season versus they've quit on the staff, so to say, right? And so what's your take on that?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think at this point in the year, speaking for myself, to be honest, I'm already looking at when I'm going to go down to my dad's in SoCal. Like, I'm ready for this to be over, and I'd imagine that players feel similarly. Like, if you
don't
really
you have A's duties?
Hey, I'm still gonna be out at those A's games, Whitey. You'll catch me at the Padres. I'll probably see you out there.
Okay.
I think it's hard to not reach that point because honestly, if they are being truthful with themselves and looking in the mirror, I think that they probably also see the reality of what is the best case scenario here. They get like a gentleman's sweep. They win 2 games maybe against the Thunder, So I think that is a natural point that any team would be feeling at this segment of their season, I guess you would say. So I agree. I don't think it necessarily says something about Doug Christie. I think that there are valid questions about, the DeMar DeRozan conversation of DeMar DeRozan is, the conversation right now is that he's hogging the ball, that nobody else is getting involved. That's not fully on DeMar DeRozan. That's where I think coaching questions can come in. It also is not on DeMar DeRozan that he's the one like controlling the possession and Zach LaVine standing in the quarter. Like, that is somewhat on Zach as well. I think it's all encompassing where you can place that sort of blame, and coaching goes into that. So I don't want to sit here and necessarily say that I think Doug has done a phenomenal job, but he was also dealt a very bad hand.
Very bad.
Extremely tough scenario. I think any coach would be struggling the way that Doug is right now. And I think that it is a valuable learning time for him. And there are definitely players that I think have his back throughout all this. We saw plenty of players advocate for Doug to become the guy in place of Mike Brown. So, no, I wouldn't say that they're giving up on Doug in this whole process. But there are questions, I think, to be had with, is Doug going to be the guy moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's tougher after last night to justify making him the full-time guy. I still would be surprised if he's not, but that's one of the thoughts I had last night.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying, oh, he has to go, but just like you say, trying to figure out the thinking. Well, it's a lot tougher to make him the guy after a loss like last night. Still a lot of pizza left in the box, so there's still time for that to be rectified. But Jay, a few moments ago, made what I think was a absolutely key point here, and I know it's something that Franklin Cardicelli keeps hammering away at. With all the issues the Kings are having, it's hard, to find one thing above everything else. But I think the defense, specifically the perimeter defense, has probably been their biggest issue this season. Would you agree?
I would agree. And I tend to focus more on like the offensive side because I think that honestly, I expected them to be really bad at defense. And the offensive side is where I thought they were supposed to be good. So I focus more on that because I'm like, this is what I think could be worked out. The defense is the main problem for sure. I just don't know how you fix that this year. Like, you don't have the talent. I think what Jay said earlier with the athleticism is very on point with perimeter defense and containment in that aspect. I honestly think that Keegan is a little overcast for what they ask him to do. He is a phenomenal defender. I don't know if he's a put him on Steph Curry and LeBron James type of defender. They're asking him to do an extreme amount. And I think he may be overcast a little bit in that role, which does not take away from the progress that he's made defensively. That's been one of the biggest things this whole season, I would say, that and the rebounding for Keegan. So, yes, the defense is the main problem. I just tend to lean more into the offensive issues recently because I think they're a bad defense and there's nothing you really do about it at this point. But you need to have a strength, and that should be the offense, and it hasn't been. You're having these fourth quarter struggles where I think pace is the biggest thing. I think the pace completely disappears at times. And for what it's worth, I think any NBA team should be really good at playing in transition. There's a reason. That's the most simple basketball that you can play in transition.
Right.
And so every team, like when you hear, I feel like I've heard this throughout the last couple of years, like, oh, we're a really good transition team. What team is bad in transition?
Mm-hmm.
And they're the bad teams, So yes, I think that should be a strength for every team. And the defense is a problem, but I really think they need to figure out the offense because that's what the talent on this roster, I think, leads towards.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that. I would say this, and this is it's a difficult conversation, and it's literally getting ready to be had. And it's not to be had today, but I definitely believe there are some players on this team who are given credit for some of the attributes that me personally, and I'm speaking for myself, just don't see. And so I think we need to really have a conversation when it comes to just who are some of these guys that are on the roster, and with that also being said, what they can attribute to this team. Everyone's looking for 3-and-D, specialists, so to say. I think Keon has kind of turned into one of those guys. I think most people would consider Keegan Murray a 3-and-D guy, Whitey, as you said. But we also need to start to look at, DeMar is kind of an outlier in the NBA. I believe Zach LaVine is getting close to becoming an outlier when it comes to the NBA. Hence why, there's been some hesitation of the reasoning of people not going after Zach LaVine. I like Zach LaVine's game. I think he fits with a certain group of people, but I'm not sure that fits right now when it comes to Sacramento Kings. I say all that to say, Brenden, to you is when we start to look at the offseason, and we're not there yet, but without a full teardown, a full, rehab of this team, where are some of the places that Brenden is starting to look at immediately?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, by the way. I think a lot of the issue here is that you're trying to fit like a square peg into a round hole. You're asking Malik Monk to be a point guard, and he's a scorer. And I think that all the best teams in the league are optimizing their talent. They're like, hey, this is what this guy's good at, so let's let him do that and not ask him to do the things that are not him.
Kings have a bad habit of going away from their strengths.
Right. And DeMar right now, DeMar became a great playmaker in San Antonio. To his credit, he was a great playmaker beforehand, but really upped that in San Antonio. I think they've made him the point guard over these last few games, and that's out of necessity. You have to do that. His assist numbers are up, but that goes against the pace aspect. I think that they are best playing in pace, specifically LaVine, and DeMar being your hub of all this. That's a slow pace. That's where DeMar thrives.
Right.
And again, it's just about, I think, to your more broad question of like, you got to go figure out how you can get these guys in their optimized roles. And I think that means going and getting a point guard. Like, we've heard the idea of KD out there, but we've also heard Trae Young, and like it doesn't answer your defense question at all. But that
I like it. I know why he's saying no, but I like it.
There's aspects of it that I can
like
see for sure. You need a point guard. The whole DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine thing, and there's no guarantees both those guys will be on this roster next season.
Otherwise, there's not going to be enough shots if you have these guys that had Trae Young. But anyway,
point being, when they were good on Chicago, they had Lonzo Ball that was the orchestrator of everything, right? Just the organizer of, hey, this guy hasn't touched the ball in a sec. I should probably get this in his direction.
I think DeMar mentioned that when I asked the two of them about playing well together. I think he brought that up himself.
Yeah, exactly. So like a guy like that makes sense, but I think that's the thing that they need to figure out this offseason, because I expect them to triple down. I think they're going to try and remain competitive, but you have to try to figure out the talent that does remain on this team, because you don't know about DeMar, you don't know about Domas. There's a lot of questions. We don't know who even the guy making these decisions is going to be, to be honest.
We don't even know if it's going to be a guy.
Right.
We have no clue.
That's true.
We have no clue. But I think that you need to, whatever talent you do keep, you need to figure out how to optimize them and get them in the roles where they are comfortable. Let them be themselves rather than trying to ask them to do things that are just not in their wheelhouse.
There is one thing, very valuable lesson I think the Kings have learned. And we'll come back with that. And you're welcome to stay, Brenden. I know you got stuff.
I'll be here. I got
Will you?
Yeah, sure.
Nice. All right. The very valuable lesson I think the Kings have learned the last few weeks. Next with the drive, guys. Brenden sitting in with us today on Sactown Sports.
Sactown Sports.
It was not a pleasant night if you're a Kings fan last night, but, well, I don't pretend to know what you went through, but could be worse. I mean, Ramsey just came in. Ramsey was listed game last night doing deliveries, and he got a flat tire. Where was it? Not Shingle Springs.
Valley Springs.
Yeah, he got a flat tire.
Who the hell knows where that's at?
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
During the fourth quarter. So he's listening to JT Thor as he's fixing a flat tire. So that's not pleasant.
It is not. It is not. I struggled to imagine that any Kings fan had a great night last night.
Right.
You know?
I know. And I don't know if you heard Brenden earlier. I was saying, even during those rough patches last night, I was telling my wife, Sheeny, I was saying, yeah, this is rough. They're still going to win, though. It's not going to be a great win you can feel good about, but they're still going to win. And she's saying, yeah, I don't know about that. I just couldn't wrap my brain around them losing to the Wizards.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it should not be a scenario where we're sitting here after talking about this today, because they did lose to the Wizards. But I think that nothing says more that going into these games against the Hornets and the Wizards, that I was out at a lot of these A's games recently, a lot of Kings reporters out there. We all had a similar feeling that they're probably going to lose one of these games.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that says more about this team.
Yeah. Now we got to cross our fingers that they win one of them.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I think a valuable lesson has been learned. A lot of very smart, right-minded people have been saying for a long time now that maybe the Kings would have been better off just kind of, resting people, tanking, if you will. I know, Brenden, you and I have talked about that, and you have, you've expressed that you think that would have made sense for the Kings. At this point, it's out the window. We'll see about next year. I'm with you. They're probably not going to do that. But here's my point. I thought, well, you can't do that because you have to see if this group of players works, because you have to know whether you want to commit to it going forward in the offseason or not. And I do think one thing they've learned here as they've played these meaningful games, I think you've learned that DeRozan and LaVine, like a lot of people have said, they don't work together. And I think going forward into next year, that's not on one or the other, but the two of them together, it does not work.
Which the crazy thing is that I think Bulls fans could have told you that years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like you're trying to do something that was already attempted and did not go well.
Right.
And they decided to move on from that. And you are willingly signing up to do the same thing. So I agree with you. I think there's aspects of, you got to figure it out. And it's not as black and white as like what happened in Chicago is going to happen here. I get the logic of, hey, we have Domas, like we have a facilitator here. He's our Lonzo equivalent, right? And the Bulls were near the top of the East for like half a year there with these two guys.
First year, yeah, and they were both all-stars.
Right.
Yeah.
So I see the logic, but I think the main case of where you see, to your point, it not working, it's the Domas thing in my mind, where, again, he's supposed to be the hub. It's really a team of a lot of hoopers, and I feel like he's the one out there trying to get everybody organized. But I don't think that his style meshes with Zach's or with DeMar's. And he's talked about it in the initial adjustments of when they acquired those guys, that Zach needs the ball in his hands a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that means that we're not really talking about dribble handoffs. We're talking about more traditional screens. And that's a basic thing. But Domas' talent, and I think what makes him so special, is making other guys better. And I think that a lot of the way that LaVine and DeMar go about things makes it tough for Domas to be able to do that. So I think to me, that's the main point that I've seen of, oh, this doesn't fit.
Yeah. Another thing that they were hoping to learn was, is Doug Christie the guy going forward? And I don't think we really know. He's certainly done some positive things that you would say, wow, he's held this team together through a difficult stretch. But as far as like the X's and O's, he's been handed, as you said, not only a bad hand, but the roster, you're at so many cross purposes. And sometimes when you have a roster that doesn't fit, it looks like, wow, that team's not well coached. But I don't know that you could coach this current roster and have them look like, a well-oiled machine. It's unfair to Doug that he's had to prove himself with this roster, in my opinion.
I would agree. And it makes it extremely tough to evaluate a coach, which is what they're attempting to do.
Sure. You
right
have
now.
to try to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think that Doug has done the best job imaginable, I guess. Not that there's certain things that he couldn't have done better, obviously.
Well, he's not perfect.
Right. And nobody is. But
he's not Dave Yeager.
Like, does this go any differently if Mike Brown is still here? I don't, probably not, And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a weird aspect of guys pushed for Doug to be the head coach, but that doesn't mean that every single person in that locker room necessarily wanted the change, so there might be some guys that are sitting there like, I don't know about all this. Mm-hmm. So I think it's definitely a tough hand, like you said, and I think it's difficult to evaluate the job that Doug has done up to this point. And really, in my mind, the only way they can evaluate that is just, hey, end of season meetings, like you need to have a conversation with Malik and with DeMar and with Domas. Like, hey, how did you feel about the job that Doug has done? Because I think that's what matters more than anything. And I don't really have an answer for that right now. So we'll see. And again, we don't even know who's going to be making that decision. If you if you change the front office, are they allowed to pick their head coach?
Yeah. And there's no way of knowing this, but I wonder, Brenden Nunes sitting with us today for a little bit. And of course, Jay and I wonder if that is impacting at all the performance of the players. The fact that, they're professionals, they're focusing on the task at hand, but how about this coach? Is he going to be back? I don't know. No. I hope he is, but I don't know. We don't even know who's going to make that decision. It can be a little unsettling. I've seen that happen to teams in different sports.
Right. I mean, I think that we could draw like a parallel to this. Like if you don't know who you're about to do the show with, you can't prepare to the best of your ability, and I don't think that the Kings know for a fact who is going to be here next year. And so these last games should be working towards the next season as well, but you have no clue what next season is going to look like. And the fact that there's things coming out about like Domas is unsure about the future of this team. If you don't know if you're going to be here, I find it hard for somebody to actually like really give their all to a scenario if you have those questions. I think that that's more of a subconscious thing in my mind, right? Is that like, I'm not trying to say Domas isn't trying, but if you have those questions, I think that does impact how you go about your day to day.
Yeah. Jay, I start to feel like I'm making excuses and I don't mean to do that.
Yeah. It's tough though, Whitey, because it's tough to get to the point of reality versus excuses versus, well, you know what? there are some issues that's facing the team. And so I guess reality versus non-reality is what I'm saying. It is definitely tough as a person, as a human being, to not know what's happening. Some people live on a calendar. Some people live on a schedule. And some people live, as they say, fly by the seat of your pants, right? And so there are different instances where you can cross both over and they work, opposites will attract. But I find it super interesting. And I think you guys are hitting something spot on in the form of, how am I supposed to give everything that I'm possibly trying to give when I don't really know what the results are going to be at the end of the rainbow, at the end of this season? And so that's why I said I really started, and not to be repetitive, I really believe this team is looking at the days of the week and saying, oh my goodness, we're getting close to the 13th, and that's what we're looking forward to. That's our end goal versus, you know what, we're giving up on the season. I think they're looking for the results, and until, only time is going to give them results. And so I think they're really trying to fashion themselves into, let's just get to the end of the season and see what happens. I will say this, and this is something that I'm going to ask both of you guys, and Brenden, please answer first. There has to be.
I wanted to go first.
Yeah, but it's okay. You go first all the time. You go first, even on the beginning of the show. The stability that seems to have come into conversation quite a bit over the last week. I think you guys would agree. Stability of this organization, and due to system general manager and assistant coach and firing and star player. We hear Domas, we hear whispers of the owner, all these different things that we're starting to have conversations about. Fellas, why not just come out and say? Why not come out and stand on something? Why, if you're the Sacramento Kings, would you not come out, if nothing else? And I saw Dave tweet this because I think a listener asked him this, is where is the ownership group for this team to say, hey, listen, this is a difficult season we're going through. Stand tall. I'm trying to figure out where that is right now.
I agree. I mean, I think that a lot of the accountability should be placed towards them. Honestly, the most that we've heard from Vivek is that he said play ball at an A's game the other day.
Yeah.
We have not heard from Vivek for years. I've been around the team. What I've been credentialed maybe this is year 4. I've never spoken to Vivek. I appreciate you, Jay. I've never spoken to Vivek in that time. In a press conference, whatever it may be.
You saying he's dodging you?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm not special like that, Whitey. You probably don't even know who I am, Whitey. I'm not trying to act special here. I'm just saying I agree with your general point, Jay.
It's like you and Wes? No, I said, is you and Vivek like Wes and Alan Styles?
Sure. We can go with that. Yeah, we ran into each other, and I'm like, oh, gosh, that was a threat, No, I mean, I agree. Like, you've had so much turnover that at what point – I mean, Sam Amick is saying as much that, like, Monty McNair came out and took the fault for the Mike Brown thing. But Sam Amick has reported, and I've heard the same thing, that was not Monty McNair's thing. That's ownership. And Zach LaVine coming into town, he was previously tied to the Kings under different management, under Vlade Divac. And who's the consistency? Who's been here the whole time? It's Vivek.
Yeah.
And so he is doing what he can, don't get me wrong, but yes, he's the consistency here. And I think the accountability should go to him a little bit. It would do a lot to hear from him is all. I think is kind of your point, Jay. Like, just calm everybody down. Just say, hey, we have a plan.
I think the tricky thing for him here, and I agree with you.
I think I know where you're going, Whitey.
I've been saying this for a while. I'd love to see that. But I think he's been trying to show that
I'm not meddling.
Yeah. Right. And so now if he comes out and says, this is really what we're doing, then that it runs counter to what he is trying to
agree
people to embrace.
But I think there is a way, and of course, we're asking them, we're asking the Kings ownership and the stable part of this organization to thread the needle. No doubt. I'm not
That's
defending
fair.
that.
Yeah.
I'm asking these guys to come out, girls and gals, girls and guys, to come out and say, if there's nothing else that's stable right now that your eyes can see, your heart doesn't feel the stability right now from the on-court play, the coaching, the assistant coaching, the star players, the in and out, the revolving door so much this year. If nothing else, stick with us, because at the end of the calendar season, there's going to be some things that I believe everybody else will enjoy. And if not, you'll see us working towards a goal. And with that being said, to me, that lets me know you're not trying to meddle in the basketball operations, which is where people are, oh my goodness, he's got his hands on drafts and, free agency and all these type of topics. I'm just saying, show the stability in what you do have. And if nothing else on this team right now, the stability is this ownership group is not going nowhere. We know that. So just come out and say, hey, listen, this year has been tough. Stick with us. You guys are the greatest fans on earth. I mean, showers, throw the flowers, put the rose petals on the ground, like coming to America. Whatever you got to do it, but also show we here. We not tucking tail. We not running.
I think that one reason, again, they're not doing that is, in my opinion, Brenden, there's going to be changes this offseason. I think we're in that awkward period. All of us right now, they're evaluating things. And I think that speech, when it comes, will be, this is now who we are. It might not even come from Vivek, but I think there's a real good chance it's going to look a lot different this summer.
I think so, too. The fact that we're hearing like GM candidate names probably says a lot about the security of Monty McNair. But I definitely agree with your point, Jay. I think the main thing is that, like, all these people are trying. Nobody is like attempting to make this all go downhill. Vivek cares about Sacramento. Vivek wants this team to be good. He's comparing sports to religion, and like that, there's nothing that says more about how he thinks how important this team is to this city.
In this town.
100%. I agree with a lot of that. he's trying. And I think there is value in coming out and saying, hey, like, we're trying to figure this out. I know that we don't make every right turn. Nobody does. And they made too many wrong turns. Don't get me wrong, but they're trying. They're trying. They got their GPS, you know, they have a location in mind. They're just taking a wrong turn every once in a while. But I do think, to your point, Jay, there's a lot of value in coming out and just being like, hey, we are trying to figure this out.
You can stick around one more?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Really?
I'm here.
All right.
Yeah, why not?
Awesome. Yeah. When we come back.
Love the positivity, Brenden.
Yeah. Here he comes.
That's what I'm here for.
Now it's starting to shine through. Is there any way the Kings really could fall out of the play-in tournament? We'll look at that next on Sactown Sports.
Sactown Sports.
Here you go, Brenden. This is Slipping into Darkness.
Oh, this is what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, of course I've heard this.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
No,
great.
no. Feels like something I'd be like playing like shuffleboard to.
Shuffleboard.
I don't know. I don't
Who's
even know.
playing shuffleboard?
He's saying this
Every
is like
once
a
in a while.
geezer song.
Oh,
Whoa.
man, you need
All right.
an
What
ARP
you
card to
saying?
jump on this?
That's what he
Was it meant to be
said.
offensive?
Man.
I love me some good shuffleboard.
Oh, but when the last time you picked up the stick in the shuffleboard
been a
situation? Yeah,
It's
talking about
been a
you love
sec,
it.
Jay.
Right.
It's been a sec, Jay.
Have you guys ever played? This is a game I've never played, but seen, and it looks fun. The lawn bowling or the bocce ball, whatever it is. You ever play
Yeah, I
that?
never played.
Oh,
that.
where you got to get like the ball closest to. There's like a smaller ball that gets rolled out, and the next ones you throw, you got to get as close to that
I
small
guess
one.
so. I've never played it. I've just seen it. I don't even know if
I
that's
played
it.
bocce ball way back when.
Yeah.
I played shuffleboard more recently than bocce ball, but I have played it.
Was it fun? Yeah.
It's all right. I'm
Okay.
competitive. I'm very competitive, and I'm like a crap talker, so I could have fun with any sort of
Love it.
competitive environment.
Then I hear I could have swore I heard you talking about you were the glorified banker of the family for Monopoly. I don't remember what show I heard that
This
on.
is true.
Banker or the
This
safety
is- yeah,
banker?
yeah.
Shifty? You
I-
little
I
shifty, huh?
banker.
Yeah, I joined you guys, and
Okay, yeah.
we do like to play Monopoly on my dad's side, and nobody wants to be banker
Yeah.
except for me. And they swear that I win every time because I'm banker. And I'm like, well, somebody else be banker. I think it's a job that should be salaried,
Yeah.
is my point. You
Yeah,
know,
love
and
it.
every other circle around go, I get an extra 100 because
Yeah.
I'm doing more work.
Brennan's
your style.
imposing
That's all I'm
tariffs
saying.
on the other players and stuff.
Absolutely.
You can't impose a tariff on me when you're the banker.
Well, yeah, and people are like, hey, how does this happen every time? I'm like, well, then you be the banker. And nobody
Yeah.
wants to. So,
Shifty
hey,
banker.
salaried job.
That's
as far as
once
I'm
you're
concerned.
labeled the shifty banker. That is a tough label.
You know what else
to
I'm
get
labeled
rid of.
though? Is a winner. I win every time. I win every time. All right.
Brenden, is there any way? I know you look at the
What
numbers, you
you
crunch the
said
numbers.
is 100% accurate.
For real.
That's one of my favorite mics because that was in response to one of my comments.
Was it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, what
Yeah.
you said is 100%
Always a
accurate.
great feeling.
Yeah.
You know, when
Yeah.
you get that, like,
Yeah.
that's a great question. I instantly look at the reporter and I'm like, oh, they are feeling themselves right now.
Right. Could the Kings fall out of the play-in tournament? They lead Phoenix by 1. I know anyone who follows this knows this. Their last 6 games, let's see. Sacramento has at Charlotte, at Detroit, at Cleveland. That's actually, that's the back-to-back. That's the other way around, but that's a back-to-back. Denver, Clippers, and the Suns. The Suns are at Boston, at the Knicks. Then they play Golden State, OKC, San Antonio, and then they wrap things up
Win-win.
against the Kings.
I heard about 12 losses in there for Phoenix, and there's
I
only
know,
12 games
I know.
left.
Durant is not with them on this road trip, and the road trip includes Boston and then the Knicks. So if the Kings beat Charlotte, and the Suns lose to Boston,
It shouldn't be a big if, but it
starts,
is.
I mean, it starts to open up a little bit, right? I still have a hard time believing Phoenix passes the Kings.
So do I. I think that as positive as I've been
And
today.
I know a lot of people right now saying we don't want to be in there.
Right.
We want to keep the pick. but-
Which I personally think that also is, in my mind, I would rather keep the pick if I'm the Kings, but that's a different
Fair enough.
conversation.
Yeah, we'll put that aside.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to fall out of the play-in. Now, last night's loss to Washington doesn't give you the most confidence going into Charlotte, but like I think that if anything, like you would hope that loss locks you in even more so. The whole point, like Doug mentioned a lot after the game, that like, hey, I know we're going to show up and be competitive against the good teams. It's overlooking these bad ones. So you would think that having that blunder means that you're going to be locked in going into the next one. So I think they'll do all right. And it is, I agree with you. It's hard for me to imagine Phoenix ending up passing them, and that's not a necessarily, great mark on the Kings that I think they're phenomenal. I think Phoenix just has a lot of issues themselves. They're not firing their coach with 8 games left like Memphis, but I think that coach is on the way out. They have a lot of questions in the direction they're going to go. So they have similar struggles. And for that reason, I struggle to see them passing the Kings.
Jay had sent a note from Bobby Marks today. And if I have this right, going into last night's games, the 3 teams battling for the 9-10 spot had lost combined 8 in a row, something like that. But did you see what Dallas did last night?
I saw 80's stat line that they won by 1.
Yeah. He had the game winner after he got elbowed in the eye.
That's what the bandage was from?
Anthony Davis, Mr. Street Clothes, and he puts the Band-Aid over his eye and comes back and hits the game winner for him.
He's ridiculously good. A random tangent for half a sec. It bothers me so much how much that people talk about the Luka trade like they got nothing. Like Anthony freaking Davis wasn't part of this deal. I think everybody forgets how good AD is.
I agree with you.
If he was healthy this entire time since they traded him,
that's the whole thing.
I think Dallas really would be a borderline contender, like in that conversation.
Wow.
He is really that level in my mind of player.
If Kyrie was also healthy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, all encompassing, right? A lot of ifs with that team for sure. But no, I mean, I think they're really talented, and the Kings have talent. The Suns have talent. They all have it there. It's just about meshing it and trying to get it working in the right direction.
That's the other thing, Jay. Brenden, I started to wonder after the game last night. I don't know what the answer is, but I started asking myself, are the Kings really as talented as we all assume they are? And I'm working on it.
I think they are, but I think it goes back to what we had talked about previously. It's optimizing that talent, right? Yeah. Sometimes you have untapped talent on your team, like things that you're just not fully able to utilize. Like obviously Zach LaVine standing in the corner, you're not optimizing that talent. I think it's Slater comes on with you guys, right? I think Slater mentioned right after you guys, right after the Kings had traded for LaVine, that when you lean into the strengths is great, right? When you are not leaning into the strengths of a player, their weaknesses feel even worse. And I think that you're seeing that happen, and that doesn't take away from the talent. But I think my main point is that the talent, I still think is there. I don't have that question. It's just about actually optimizing it and figuring out the best way that we can get the most from all of these guys.
So I was going to say, I think a lot of it is individual talent.
Right.
This team is individually gifted, no doubt about it. It's just, as you guys are talking about, it's just coming together.
Right.
I don't know how you do that at this point.
Well, you don't. And I mean, I think we have to come to fruition to the point that you don't. The 7 games left. You just, unless you catch lightning in a bottle, flip the switch, something happens, the basketball gods, allow you to do so. I think we've kind of probably prognosticated this 3 weeks ago. Like it just, the things that we were hoping and asking for, we just kept continuing to say, well, maybe time helps it. Maybe time helps it. Maybe practice helps it. Maybe more time together, maybe more practices together, maybe, experience, all those different things. But unfortunately, they have been picked off in so many different ways of injury, illness, assistant coaches leaving, all these different things that have happened to where I just don't think it's going to happen this season. And I think we have to come to fruition and say that time has run its course. Now we just need to look forward to how this team finishes and then start to look forward to the offseason.
I think that strategy, I was going to say, I think that strategy of all the options made some sense. Like, let's hope it comes together. It hasn't. So I don't know what you do now, but I do understand why at that point it was kind of, well, let's put all these ingredients in the soup and let's hope we end up with something tasty.
Sure. 100%. And I think to your point, Jay, of like the essentially phoning it in right now, because you just got to look in the mirror and be real about what's going on. I think it goes back to answering your previous question of dudes aren't giving up. It's just, that's the reality of what's going on right now. And it's hard to not, even if you're in it, honestly, even more so if you are directly involved in it as one of these players, you probably feel that even more than we do.
Yeah, we're coming right back here. I don't know how much longer we're going to have Brenden around.
However long you want.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
I don't got anything going on.
Cool. Why saying the Kings coasted is giving them too much credit. Next with the Drive Guys, Sactown Sports.